Some
I know
mistakes
you
can't
wanted to
be
keep this
undone
a
with
secret,
money, Mr.
but
Whitmore, she said
I
loud
think it's
enough for
important for
everyone to
everyone to
hear.
know the truth.
But maybe you'll learn that there are things in this world far more powerful than your hatred. The door closed behind her, leaving a deathly silence. Dylan continued to wiggle his toes, tears streaming down his face while Marcus stood there paralyzed for the first time in his life. If this stores, little black girl said, feed me and I'll heal your son. The millionaire didn't believe it until the impossible happened right then and there. Security, get this thing out of here before I throw her out myself. Marcus Whitmore yelled so loud that all the customers in the most expensive restaurant in Manhattan stopped eating to look. His veins bulged in his neck as he pointed furiously at the 9-year-old girl standing next to his table. Iris didn't move, barefoot in her simple worn dress. She kept her eyes fixed on the 62-year-old man who had just called her a thing in front of 50 people. Her 12-year-old son Dylan sat in his wheelchair next to the table, watching everything in silence. Please, sir, she repeated with the calmness that belied her age. I just need a plate of food. In return, I can cure your son. Marcus burst into cruel laughter that echoed through the gilded hall. Cure? Do you think you're Jesus Christ? He turned to the other customers, seeking complicity. Look at this, folks. A street urchin thinks she can do what the best doctors in the world couldn't. The girl had entered the restaurant as if she were floating. No one had seen her pass the reception desk, the security guards at the entrance, or the maître who controlled every movement. She simply appeared, walking between the tables, heading straight for Marcus's table as if she knew exactly where he would be. My son has been paraplegic for 4 years, Marcus continued, his voice now laden with venom. I've spent $3 million on the best specialists on the planet, and you, a smelly girl who probably can't even read, think you can help. Dylan discreetly tugged at his father's sleeve. Dad, maybe. Shut up, Dylan. Marcus cut him off without even looking at his son. This is trying to scam us. Iris remained motionless, but something in her eyes changed, an intensity that made Marcus instinctively back away. Hey. She took a step forward and placed her hand on Dylan's wheelchair arm. Do you feel anything in your legs now? She asked the boy softly. Dylan's eyes widened. I feel tingling. Stop this nonsense. Marcus pushed the girl hard, causing her to stumble. Don't you dare touch my son. But Dylan was staring at his legs in amazement. Dad, something's happening. I can feel it. You can't feel anything, Marcus yelled, completely losing control. It's all in your head. This monster is manipulating his mind. The silence that fell over the restaurant was deafening. Even the waiters stopped moving. Marcus had crossed a line of no return. Iris stood up slowly, brushing the dust off her dress. She looked at Marcus with a serenity that froze his blood. You just made a very serious mistake, she said, her voice still calm but now laden with something that sent a chill down the millionaire's spine. You're threatening me, you, Marcus began, but was interrupted when Dylan let out a cry of astonishment. Dad, I can move my toes. All eyes turned to Dylan, who was staring at his feet with tears in his eyes. Slowly, very slowly, his toes moved inside his shoes. Marcus turned white as a sheet. That's impossible. Iris turned her back on him and started walking toward the exit. That was just the beginning, she said without turning around. But now he'll have to win back what he just lost. As she walked down the restaurant hallway, Dylan shouted, Wait, please come back. But Iris didn't stop. At the door, she turned one last time. Her eyes met Marcus's, and in that moment, he felt as if she could see right into his rotten soul. If second chances and justice touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a little girl would transform the life of a powerful man in a way he could never have imagined. Marcus remained seated in the restaurant for another 20 minutes after Iris left, watching Dylan wiggle his toes repeatedly as if testing a new toy. The dining room had resumed its discreet conversations, but he could feel the curious glances and whispers directed at his table. Dad, she said. I'd have to win her back, Dylan murmured, still fascinated by the newfound sensation. What does that mean? Marcus ignored the question and summoned the matraille with an impatient snap of his fingers. I need information about the girl who was here. Who brought her? How did she get in? The middle-aged man, clearly uncomfortable, shook his head. Mr. Whitmore, no one saw her come in. She just appeared. The security guards swear she didn't pass them. That's impossible. Marcus slammed his fist on the table, making the glasses rattle. No one just appears. Check the cameras, question all the employees. I want to know everything about her within an hour. But an hour turned into 2, then 4. The security camera showed Marcus and Dylan arriving. They showed the other customers, but at no point did they capture Iris entering the establishment. It was as if she had materialized out of thin air. Marcus hired 3 private investigators over the next few days. Each of them returned empty-handed and confused. Mr. Whitmore, said James Rodriguez, the most experienced of them. We've searched all the shelters, schools, hospitals in the area. No girl with those characteristics is registered anywhere. Look harder, Marcus shouted, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. She's not a ghost. Someone knows her. Someone knows where she lives. What irritated him most was not just not finding her, but the way she had spoken to him. Marcus Whitmore had built a $200 million empire by being ruthless. He had destroyed entire families for much less than this public affront. He had demolished entire communities for his developments without losing a night's sleep. He remembered perfectly the case of the Hendersons, a family of farmers who had refused to sell their land for a fair price. Marcus had not only forced the sale through legal pressure, but had also ensured that William Henderson would never find employment anywhere in the region. The last time he had seen him, the man was begging for money in front of a church. People like that girl need to learn their place, he grumbled as he drove through the poorest streets of town, looking for any sign of her. You can't give these people too much freedom. They mistake kindness for weakness. Dylan tried to argue. Dad, she didn't ask for money. She just wanted food. Shut up, Dylan, Marcus exploded. You don't understand how these people operate. It always starts like this. First, they do a cheap trick to impress you. Then comes the blackmail. Then they want everything you have. But no matter how many times Marcus repeated this narrative to himself, he couldn't explain what had happened to Dylan's legs. In the 4 years since the accident, he had taken his son to the best neurologists in the world. Dr. Peterson at the Mayo Clinic had been categorical. The spinal cord is severely damaged. The paralysis is permanent. Now Dylan not only moved his fingers but could feel temperature and pressure in his legs. The doctors were baffled. There is no medical explanation for this, Dr. Morrison had said after the battery of tests. It should be impossible. Marcus, however, was determined to prove that it was all an elaborate hoax. It must have been suggestion, he insisted, or some kind of hypnosis. These people study psychological tricks to deceive vulnerable families. Meanwhile, his search was becoming increasingly desperate. He was offering rewards of $50,000 for information. He had placed advertisements in newspapers, on radio stations, even on social media, something he would never have done under normal circumstances. His friends at the golf club began making jokes. I hear that the mighty Marcus Whitmore has been fooled by a child, Richard Sterling had commented over lunch last Saturday. Maybe he's getting soft in his old age. The public humiliation was unbearable. Marcus, who had always controlled every aspect of his life and business, couldn't accept that a barefoot girl had achieved something that modern medicine couldn't. Worse still, she had done it in front of witnesses, exposing his own cruelty and prejudice. She planned it all, Marcus would say to the Mirror every morning. It was a setup from the beginning. Someone sent her to blackmail me. But then Dylan would ask, Dad, why did she leave if it was a setup? Why didn't she ask for money? Marcus had no answer to that. It was during the second week of searching that something strange began to happen. People Marcus had wronged over the years began to appear in his life in unexpected ways. Margaret Foster, the teacher he had fired for insubordination when she questioned his cuts to the education budget, was hired as principal of the most prestigious school in town. Old Mr. Henderson, who had been begging after losing his land, had suddenly gotten a well-paying job at a competing company, and everyone was talking about the same thing: a mysterious girl who had appeared in their lives offering hope when they least expected it. "It's impossible," Marcus Mutter read, studying the investigators' reports. "It can't be the same person." But the descriptions were identical. A black girl, 9 years old, intense eyes, a supernatural calm, and she always appeared in people's darkest moments, offering them exactly what they needed to start over. Dylan watched his father sink deeper and deeper into obsession. "Dad, maybe we should just thank her for helping me. Thank her." Marcus turned on him in a rage. "She humiliated me in public. She made me look like a monster in front of 50 people. I won't rest until I find her and prove that it was all a cheap trick." What Marcus didn't realize was that every word of hatred, every action driven by arrogance and prejudice was being carefully observed by eyes he couldn't see. He thought he was hunting Iris, but in fact, he was being watched the entire time, and every display of his true nature only confirmed something she had known from the moment she first laid eyes on him. For a moment, as Marcus shouted alone in his office after another day of fruitless searching, he almost looked like a broken man seeking redemption. But anyone who knows the true nature of arrogance knows that it disguises itself as desperation when it doesn't get what it wants, and that some men need to lose everything before they understand that they never had anything that really mattered. Iris watched Marcus through the window of the corner cafe, her small fingers wrapped around the mug of hot chocolate the owner had offered her for free. It was the third time that week that the millionaire had walked down the same street, yelling at passers-by and showing a blurry photo of her to anyone who crossed his path. $50,000 for information, he shouted, his eyes bloodshot and his beard unshaven. "Someone must know this girl." Sarah Mitchell, the cafe owner, dried her hands on her apron and approached the table where Iris was sitting. At 45, Sarah had immediately recognized the descriptions circulating in the local newspapers, but she had also recognized something deeper in the child's eyes. "He's been looking for you for weeks," Sarah whispered, sitting down next to Iris. "Are you really who I think you are?" Iris nodded serenely. "Yes, and he won't stop until he finds me. Why don't you hide? Move to another city?" Because Iris took a sip of her chocolate. Sometimes people need to confront who they really are before they can choose who they want to become. Sarah studied the girl's face. 3 months ago, her cafe was on the verge of bankruptcy. Large chains had moved into the neighborhood, and she couldn't compete. That was when a little girl showed up at her door, wet from the rain, asking for a glass of water. "You're not going to close," Iris had said that day with absolute certainty. "Something will happen that will change everything." The following week, a famous food critic discovered the cafe by chance and wrote a review that turned the small business into the most sought-after meeting place in the area. Sarah never understood how it happened. "You've helped so many people," Sarah said softly. "Why did you choose to help the son of that horrible man?" "Because Dylan didn't choose his father," Iris replied. "And because sometimes to save a good person, you have to change a bad one." Marcus appeared again at the window, now accompanied by 2 private investigators. He was gesticulating wildly, clearly frustrated by another day of fruitless searching. "This child is not normal," he yelled at his men. "No one just disappears like this. She must be hiding with someone." Iris watched him closely. Over the past few days, he had become increasingly cruel in his search. He had confronted employees at children's shelters, threatened poor families, and even offered bribes to police officers. Yesterday, he had stormed into an elementary school in a poor neighborhood, disrupting classes and scaring children as he searched for her. When the principal tried to stop him, Marcus shouted, "These people always protect their own. You know where she is." "He's getting more dangerous," Sarah observed, watching Marcus roughly push an elderly man who had refused to look at the photo. "Yes," Iris agreed. And that's exactly what needs to happen. Sarah frowned, confused. How so? Marcus Whitmore built his fortune by destroying vulnerable people. He evicted families, bribed public officials, fired sick employees, but he always did it behind the scenes, keeping his hands clean in public. Iris pointed to Marcus, who is now arguing with the street vendor. Now he's showing everyone who he really is. Every shout, every threat, every show of contempt is being seen by witnesses. Sarah began to understand. You're letting him expose himself. Better than that. Iris smiled for the first time. I'm letting him document his own downfall. She pulled a small phone from her pocket. A simple, almost obsolete model. Patricia Williams gave this to me last week. Sarah knew Patricia. She was an investigative journalist who had lost her job after trying to expose Marcus' real estate schemes. Is she still in town? Patricia never stopped investigating Marcus. 4 years, she collected evidence, but she was never able to get his victims to speak publicly. They were afraid. Iris showed her the screen of her phone. There were dozens of videos. Marcus yelling at children, threatening families, bribing officials. Now they don't have to speak. He's doing it for them. Sarah's eyes widened. You're recording all of this? Patricia has people all over the city documenting his every move, every threat, every display of racism, every abuse of power. Marcus approached the cafe window, pressing his face against the glass and looking inside. His eyes met Iris's for a split second, but she quickly lowered her head, hiding her face behind her cup. He walked on, not recognizing her. Why don't you confront him now? Sarah asked. Because Iris stood up, putting her phone away. True justice isn't about revenge. It's about giving people the chance to choose who they want to be when no one is forcing that choice on them. She walked to the door, pausing before leaving. Dylan is getting better every day. His legs are almost completely healed. But Marcus doesn't know that because he's too busy hating to notice the miracle happening right under his nose. Sarah fell to chill. And when he finds out, then he'll have to choose, Iris said, opening the door, between the son who can walk and the pride that blinds him. As the girl disappeared into the crowd, Sarah noticed that Marcus had stopped across the street. He was staring directly at the cafe door, a strange expression on his face. For a moment, it looked like he had seen something, but then his phone rang and he turned away, resuming his obsessive search. What Marcus didn't know was that every step of his hunt was being carefully orchestrated by someone who understood that the best way to defeat a powerful man is not to attack him directly, but to give him enough rope to hang himself in front of everyone. It was on a Thursday afternoon that Marcus Whitmore's empire began to crumble live on national television. He was in his office on the top floor when his secretary burst through the door, her face pale with panic. Mr. Whitmore, you need to see this right now. The television was turned on to Channel 7 where Patricia Williams was presenting a special report. Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Williams, and over the past 15 days, our team has documented the shocking behavior of one of the most powerful men in this city. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. On the screen was a photo of him next to the headline, Racist Billionaire, The Cruel Hunt of Marcus Whitmore. What you are about to see, Patricia continued, are actual recordings of Marcus Whitmore, owner of Whitmore Enterprises, chasing a 9-year-old child through the streets of the city with threats, bribes, and explicit displays of racism. The first video showed Marcus yelling at the street vendor, "These people always protect their own kind. You know where that stinking is." His voice echoed with pure hatred as he roughly pushed the elderly woman aside. Marcus grabbed the phone and dialed his lawyer's number furiously. "Richardson, stop this broadcast now. Sue them for defamation." "Marcus," his lawyer's voice sounded tense, "I'm watching the report. I can't stop it. The recordings are legitimate, filmed in public spaces on television." A second video began to play. Marcus storming into the elementary school, terrorizing small children as he shouted, "Where is that monkey? I know you're hiding her." "My God," whispered his secretary, covering her mouth in horror. Patricia continued with relentless journalistic authority. But the story doesn't end there. We've discovered that this obsessive pursuit began when a girl offered to help Whitmore's paraplegic son in exchange for food. His response was to publicly expel her from a restaurant with racist slurs. Marcus felt his legs give way. He collapsed into the leather armchair as the third video showed him offering a police officer a $50,000 bribe. This child is not normal. Someone is hiding her. How much do you want to turn this place upside down until you find her? The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors, partners, board members. Marcus knew that every call brought bad news. We also have, Patricia revealed, recordings of conversations where Whitmore admits to deliberately ruining the lives of families who opposed his business. The screen showed transcribed audio recordings of Marcus bragging to his associates. Henderson, that idiot farmer, now he's begging in front of the church. When you have real power, you can destroy anyone who dares to challenge you. Marcus typed desperately on his cell phone, trying to access his bank accounts. Several were already blocked. His credit cards had been canceled. The company's board had called an emergency meeting to vote on a vote of no confidence. That's when the office door slowly opened and Iris walked in as calm as ever. Marcus staggered to his feet. You planned all this? No, Iris replied calmly. I just let you show who you really are. Behind her, Dylan appeared at the door. But this time, he wasn't in a wheelchair. He walked with firm, confident steps, completely healed. Dad. Dylan looked at his father with deep disappointment. I saw everything on television. How could you say those horrible things about her? She healed me. Marcus looked at his son walking, then at Iris, then at the television where Patricia continued to expose his documented cruelty. That's impossible. How you were so busy with your hatred, Iris explained, that you didn't even notice that Dylan has been walking better every day, that he's been completely healed for a week. On the television, Patricia made her final revelation, and we have discovered that the girl Whitmore persecuted so cruelly is 9-year-old Ira Santos, who has helped dozens of people in our community. While Whitmore was destroying lives, she was rebuilding them. The phone rang again. It was Richardson. Marcus, I have to tell you, the company lost 80% of its value in 3 hours. Investors are fleeing NAS. The board voted unanimously to fire you. Marcus hung up and looked at Iris, who was watching Dylan walk across the office as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Why? He asked, his voice breaking. Why did you heal me after everything I did? I didn't heal you, Iris replied with devastating simplicity. I healed your son. You always had the choice to heal yourself. Outside, Marcus could hear the buzz of reporters gathering in the lobby of the building. His photo was trending on social media with hashtags like #millionaireRacist and #justice for Iris. Dylan approached the window and waved to the people on the street who were shouting his name in support. Dad, they're on our side, on the right side. Marcus realized that he had lost not only his fortune and reputation, but something infinitely more valuable, his son's respect. And unlike all the other losses, this one could not be bought back. Iris walked to the door, but before leaving she looked back one last time. The real cure sometimes hurts more than the disease itself, Mr. Whitmore. But some people need to lose everything to find out what really matters. As she disappeared down the hallway, Marcus was left alone with Dylan, who looked at him with a mixture of pity and hope, like someone who still believes that people can change, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. But could a man who had built his entire life on privilege and prejudice really find redemption in the ashes of his own destruction? Or do some transformations require more than just the loss of power to become genuine? 6 months later, Marcus Whitmore sat in a small 2-bedroom apartment, a far cry from the mansion he had lost to pay court settlements. His hands trembled slightly as he read yet another job rejection letter. Thank you for your interest, but we have decided to move forward with another candidate. Read the standard response he had been receiving for weeks. His name had become become toxic in all business circles. Through the window he could see Dylan walking through the park with Iris and Patricia Williams. The boy ran freely, laughing as he played frisbee, completely healed. But now he lived with his mother, who had been granted custody after the traumatic events. Patricia had won the Investigative Journalism Award for her report on Marcus. This story proves that justice still exists when we have the courage to document the truth, she said in her acceptance speech. Iris, meanwhile, had become a minor local celebrity. Entire families sought her help, and she never refused. Sarah from the cafe had set up a scholarship fund in his name, which had already benefited 15 underprivileged children. Marcus watched everything from the window, unable to get closer. Dylan waved when he saw him, a gesture that mixed forgiveness with distance. The boy had grown a lot in the last few months, not just physically, but emotionally. Dad tried to teach me that some people were worth less than others, Dylan had said in an interview with a local blog about overcoming adversity. But Iris showed me that a person's worth has nothing to do with his bank account. Marcus's phone rang. It was Richardson, his former lawyer. Marcus, I've got something for you. Volunteer work at a shelter. It doesn't pay anything, but I'll take it, Marcus interrupted quickly. At the shelter, Marcus discovered a world he had ignored his entire life. Abandoned children, families torn apart by poverty, people who needed second chances. At first, it was painful. Every black child who looked at him with suspicion was a reminder of the terrible man he had been. But gradually, something began to change. An 8-year-old girl named Sophie, who had been living at the shelter for 2 years, began to trust him. "You look sad like I used to," she said one day. "But everyone can get better if they really want to." Marcus worked at the shelter for months without pay, cleaning, organizing, helping however he could. Slowly, some people began to notice his genuine change, not the performative change of someone trying to clean up their image, but the real transformation of someone confronting his own demons. Iris visited the shelter occasionally. The first time she saw him there, she just nodded silently in approval. "Some people have to lose everything to find who they really are," she told Patricia, who was quietly documenting Marcus' journey of redemption. Dylan also began visiting his father at the shelter, not for immediate reconciliation, but to see if the change was real. "Have you really changed, Dad?" he asked one day. "I'm trying," Marcus replied honestly. "I know I can't undo what I've done, but I can try to be better from here on out." 2 years later, Marcus had become assistant director of the shelter. His business experience, now tempered by humility, had helped expand the shelter's educational programs. He never regained his fortune or his social standing, but he found something money could never buy: real purpose. Iris, now 11, continued to help people throughout the city. Her fame had grown, but she remained the same simple girl who had asked only for food in exchange for miracles. "The real cure," she said in a speech at Dylan's school, "is not just fixing what's broken, it's teaching people not to break others." Marcus watched that speech from the back of the room, tears in his eyes. Dylan saw him, and for the first time in years waved at him with a genuine smile. The story of Marcus Whitmore became a case study in how privilege can corrupt, but also how true humility can redeem. He learned that some lessons can only be taught by the complete loss of what we thought defined our worth. Iris proved that the greatest miracles don't happen when we heal broken bodies, but when we heal spirits corrupted by hatred and prejudice. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying our enemies, but giving them the chance to become better people than they ever thought possible. If this story of transformation and second chances touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove it's never too late to choose who we want to be, even after we discover who we really